So I just recently saw the Friday Nights at Freddy's movie. This movie is literally getting trashed by critics at the moment. I'm here to talk about my review of what I think of the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. Just so people know, I am a huge fan of the Five Nights at Freddy's games, with probably my favourites being the first game, second game, the third game, the fourth game, and Sister Location, and also Ultimate Custom Night. But those are probably some of my favourite games from the franchise. We waited so long for the FNAF movie. In 2015 was when the FNAF movie was first announced. And yep, you probably can tell how long 2015 was. And yep, it was 8 years since the FNAF movie was first announced. There are many scripts for the FNAF movie that were turned down by Scott Cawthon due to him not liking them. One of the scripts that Scott turned down, which thank God he did because it would be so crazy seeing it, was about plushies invading a town. Or I think it was a town, I'm not too sure, but yeah, pretty much about FNAF plushies invading, which, yep, thank God that wasn't turned into a movie. Warner Brothers was originally going to make the FNAF movie, but due to the project not moving forward, they decided to not make the FNAF movie, and so Scott Cawthon turned to Blumhouse. Then we had to wait another long delay for the film. Of course, I think it was due to 2020, of course that mucking up everyone's lives because of COVID. However, from 2021 to 2022, that's when the FNAF movie started to finally take off at least. The film would begin production on February the 1st, and then wrapped on April the 6th. And that was pretty much the whole production of the FNAF movie. There's more to it, but of course it's very long history, so you guys can check it out yourself if you want to. But now let's talk about my opinions of the FNAF movie, and I'll get to spoilers at the end just so you know. But I'll warn you when spoiler territory will head to. But what was my review of the FNAF movie? I actually thought this movie was actually excellently done. I know that it's not a perfect movie, but it actually was pretty entertaining and enjoyable, especially for a FNAF fan. Like, the movie actually wasn't that bad. I mean, I think the main reason why the Rotten Tomatoes score is so low was because they're from people who haven't even played any of the games before. First, let's talk about the things I really liked about the FNAF movie, which there's actually quite a lot of things I did like about it. For one, I absolutely love the animatronics in this movie. They look so amazing. They were brought to life by the Jim Henson Company, and it can really tell that they're animatronics. Like, they're actually animatronics. There is no CGI added to the animatronics in the movie. They could have went with CGI, but I'm glad they didn't, because that would have ruined, like, the whole experience of the film with having these animatronic characters. So I'm glad they actually used animatronics, and it looks realistic. One thing that I also really liked about the film were all the references to the games. There was actually quite a lot of references and Easter eggs to the games that were in the movie. There was actually quite a lot of Easter eggs that most FNAF fans will be into, and I don't think any critics will pretty much understand what these Easter eggs are. Obviously, I'm going to talk about the Easter eggs in the spoilers, which will be coming up very soon. So yeah, there's a lot of Easter eggs in this movie, which will really surprise the fans, and it really tells that they dived into so much detail when making this movie. One thing I really liked about the movie was Mike Schmidt and William Afton in the movie. I thought that Mike Schmidt, played by Josh Hutcherson, was definitely an interesting character, and I did really like the story that he had in the movie. Even though they played it a bit too much, it still was an interesting story, which I'll go into more detail in spoilers. And obviously my favourite character, definitely in the movie, is William Afton, played by Matthew Lillard, which he was perfect in the role. I especially loved him in Scream, and I think he's really good in this movie. However, my only negative about it is that he didn't really show up too much in the movie, but that's going to be more for spoilers. But yeah, I was kind of disappointed they didn't show up for the rest of the movie. There was also Vanessa, played by Elizabeth Lale. She was good in the movie, but however, I felt that she had some character problems, which I'll explain in spoilers. Obviously, I think the Freddy Fazbear's Joint Pizzeria actually looks amazing, even though it's a lot different to the game, so I was expecting that. The restaurant in the movie kind of reminds me of a rundown Chuck E. Cheese restaurant. All in all, those are my positives about the movie. I thought this movie was really great. It was really entertaining. However, I do feel like there is some negatives that I gotta talk about. Now, the only thing that I didn't really like about the FNAF movie was probably the story and probably some of the characters, which I can kind of get why the characters weren't going to be that good in the movie. Pretty much because they're based on, games that doesn't really have too much characters to it. Like, there are characters like, William Afton and Michael Afton, all those characters, but they're characters that you don't really know too much about in the games. So the movie's going to have its own twist to some of the characters, and while some of the characters were good, like Michael Afton, there were just some things that, were kind of, unanswered to some of the characters, which is something I hope they do in the sequel. Also, I felt some of the non-FNAF characters, like new characters that, the movie had to offer, were kind of bland, to be honest. Like, most of the characters in this movie were some of them were pretty much like victims to the animatronics, and that's pretty much, really it. They were just made, for some really cool kill scenes, but that was pretty much it. Also, this movie isn't even scary. I know that most people have said this, but this movie is barely even a horror movie, I consider. Like, it's not really scary. And I get they try to make it PG-13 to appeal to a, kid audience, because FNAF is mostly an audience, most of them pretty much are kids and teenagers, so they couldn't have made it R18+, because then they would have lost a lot of money, which I get that, but enjoyable and fun for, the audience in the theater to, jump at a few scenes. But that's unfortunately what, was kind of lost for the film for me. Also, considering that, I think we should have got more scenes with William Afton, Matthew Lillard, he's one of the best actors in the film. Probably could have given him a bit more screen time, especially I really wanted like a montage of the 1980s, maybe Fredbear's Family Diner, of William Afton wearing that spring bonnie suit and, luring children to the back rooms. They kind of did that at the start with the intro, but I really wanted the scene, like, full of that, to be honest. That's something I hope we get for the sequel, maybe, if they're going to make number 2, which I heard they are, as well as a third one. So, hopefully, we have more William Afton in the sequel, okay? Mr. Blum. Also, the last thing that I didn't really like about the movie, and that is the runtime. It felt very, very short, the movie, and very, very quick. Like, it was trying to jump to each scene, in my own opinion. Now, no one has really talked about this, I don't think, about the runtime, but I just thought that this movie, was too fast, too quick. I heard that they were going to do a 3-hour runtime for the movie, but they decided to go with 1 hour and 50 minutes, which, I get that, to, play it more in the theaters, and also, to not make the audience get bored. But to be honest, I would love a 3-hour FNAF movie, but, I hope that's something that they do on the DVDs or something like that. And now we're going to talk about spoilers about the FNAF movie. Now, if you don't want to go to spoilers, you can skip to this time right here. You've been warned. Now let's going to talk about the movie and pretty much how all the characters were, in my opinion, in the film. So at the start of the movie, we follow Mike Schmidt, who's looking after his younger sister, Abby. However, Mike finds this man that takes his kid, which he assumes is like some kind of guy that's stealing a kid, so he runs up to that guy and starts beating him up. Mike is having trouble with his daughter, Abby, who's going to get taken by the sort of main villain of the film, Jane, who's trying to take Abby just because Mike doesn't know how to look after her, as she thinks. So, in order to pay the bills, Mike decides to head to career counselor Steve Raglan, who tells him he's got a crappy job working at Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria. So, Mike heads off and, stays a few nights, at the pizzeria. He then meets this cop called Vanessa, who has a history with the restaurant. We then learn that Mike is struggling, and that's because he remembers a long, long time ago, back when he was just a little kid, when he saw his younger brother, Garrett, get taken by a stranger, and then him never seeing him again. So Mike is still thinking of the past and is wondering who took his brother throughout the rest of the movie, and that's pretty much all his character. He's figuring out what he's doing and what he did in the past, and he feels regretful for that. We go back to the scummy Jane, who is sitting down with a gang with her lawyer in Sparky's, which basically is pretty much a reference to the dog, the animatronic dog that was rumored to be in the first game, but it was actually false, Sparky the dog. But Jane and the gang are not the only one there. It's also MatPat from Game Theory, yes. Or Ness as he's called for some odd reason. Well, it's supposed to be a reference to, his most popular video about Ness. But anyway, the gang decides to trash the Freddy Fazbear's Pizza restaurant just so Mike can get fired. And so the animatronics come to life and pretty much the entire gang is dead. Mike then decides to take Abby to the restaurant that he's been working out for entire night. However, he's extremely strict on some of the rules. So Abby doesn't follow Mike's rules and starts playing around with the animatronics. And yes, this is the moment where I started to less care, and that's when the animatronics start to become kid-friendly. That is, I'm not even joking. The animatronics then start building forts with the characters. And Bonnie then points the thumbs up like the Terminator, and oh boy, that just looked very silly. Like, oh my god. That's probably one of the worst parts of the film, in my opinion. Now let's focus now on Mike's issues now. In his montage in his head about, his younger brother getting kidnapped, he then sees the ghost of the children by the animatronics in his head and saying that they want Abby. However, Mike doesn't determine the deal with them, and so they become more toxic to him. Then it's the reveal that the kids want Abby so they can make Abby like an animatronic just like them. So, Mike then decides to make a deal with Jane, making Abby technically be her parent now. However, Golden Freddy eventually fixes that by killing Jane, and also taking Abby with him. Mike is kidnapped by one of the animatronics and is in that trap again. However, he escapes very easily. Vanessa then tells Mike about the restaurant's history and tells him about William Afton wearing the spring Bonnie suit. And also, the reveal, which drum roll please, that Vanessa is actually William Afton's daughter. Wow, what a surprise, right there. Then she tells Michael about that the animatronics were dead children and that William Afton killed the children back in the 80s, and so their suits and their bodies are still in the animatronics' suits and they still possess them. Which, by the way, they barely even mention that there are dead kids in the suits. Which, by the way, the main reason why Freddy Fazbear's clothes was due to odors and pretty much the smell of dead children. So why does the characters not have the smell inside the animatronics, even though... you know what, who cares, just a movie, let's move on. So Abby is about to get stuffed into an animatronic suit, which, by the way, did you see Sparky the dog as well in pieces there? So yeah, 2 Sparky references in the film. But anyway, on to the story. So Chica tries to stuff Abby, however, Mike comes in to save the day. However, a big boss has returned, and that is obviously Spring Bonnie, or Spring, he's not Springtrap, it's Spring Bonnie. And... drum roll, please. Well, actually, there's no drum roll. I think everyone knows by this point. William Afton is in Spring Bonnie's suit. And it's revealed that he's controlling the animatronics. However, the animatronics eventually turn on him, and so with the help of Chica's cupcake, a spring lock failure happens to William Afton. And I'm sorry to say, but this scene was kinda disappointing to me. They could have made this scene a lot more impactful and a lot more epic, but they just kind of rushed through it, and that's why I don't really like, the ending to the film. They kind of rushed it. Also, William Afton says, "I always come back." I kind of like the line, but I kind of find it really confusing that they added it in here, in the first movie, and he's not even Springtrap yet. So, what does the "I always come back" line even mean when he says it? Does that mean William Afton died a little while ago? It doesn't make sense. Like, it's just a movie. Move on. So William Afton gets, spring locked into the suit, and pretty much Mike and Abby head home, and everyone pretty much lives happily ever after. Oh, and I forgot Vanessa was stabbed, so she's in the hospital now. And so that's pretty much the FNAF movie. So what are my final thoughts on the film? I actually like the movie. However, there is some stuff that I think should have been changed, and if I made my own Five Nights at Freddy's movie, it would be a lot different compared to this. But that could be maybe sometime in the future later if anyone wants to see my own uncut version of Five Nights at Freddy's. But anyway, I thought this was an alright film. I thought it was great. I really loved it. And whilst I did rush it through a few things, I do feel like this definitely is an entertaining movie. And the fans will be happy with this. So overall, I give it a 7 out of 10, to be honest, for my final thoughts. Do I think the reviews are unfair? Kinda, but I mean, I do kind of get the people that make the reviews because they haven't played any of the games. So anyway, it's really up to you if you like the movie or not. But if you're a fan, you'll definitely enjoy this movie. I recommend it for pretty much the die-hard FNAF fans. But anyway, I hope the sequels will get made, and I hope we see the sequels, which will be coming out hopefully next year or the years after. So we're going to expect more FNAF in the near future, which is awesome. But anyway, what do you think of Five Nights at Freddy's? Comment down below. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next adventure.